Hi, and welcome back to the Lil Will Learning Company. So, before I started this company, I was a classroom teacher for 17 years. And every year, I would get new students, and invariably, they would have gaps in their understanding of concepts that, technically speaking, as I got them as sixth graders, they were supposed to know how to do certain things. And I get students who didn't have that knowledge. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they weren't taught it. I don't know, but they didn't have it when I got them, basically. And I'd have to constantly go back and review certain older materials. Now, look, I get it. That's fine. Some students learn things they forget. It happens. But the point is, when you see it over and over, year after year after year, it I don't want to say it becomes frustrating, but you kind of hope that there's something, a tool you have that can address that, that's something beyond just your own knowledge of it, so to speak. And so when I started this company, I started writing materials that I thought would be helpful to families, to students, to teachers. One of the first ones I wrote was direct approach to math word problems. Because when I was teaching math, I always noticed that students struggle with word problems. And so, based on my knowledge of it, I was like, okay, well, there's certain strategies you have to use in order to solve these problems. And if you just practice each strategy one by one, it gets easier. The problem is that I couldn't find a book that directly taught that. And what I mean by that is not necessarily a book that didn't have word problems. I meant a book that taught the strategies for how to solve a word problem. And so I was like, okay, I'll write that. But I wrote in the beginning of the book, I said, the thing with this book, though, is a student's going to need to have an understanding of how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and it really helps they have an understanding of fractions and decimals. So even though I wrote this book and I was fairly proud of it, I was thinking, well, but it's not even accessible unless the student already has these skills mastered. The same problem I had with my classroom, where it's like these students were coming into my classroom, and I'm supposed to be able to assume they have certain skills mastered, even though they didn't. So with that in mind, I said, okay, well, I'll write a math book about arithmetic that teaches those skills so that before they go to the math word problems book, they'll have those kind of mastered down. And I decided to call it Arithmetic from Beginning to End. I genuinely thought this will be like a 50-page book. Be done. I'll write this in about a month. Well, I started writing it in August of 2025. I finished it at the end of January 2026. I thought it would be a really simple arithmetic book that covers all the skills needed before you go into algebra. 50 pages tops. Real simple, direct to the point, no problem. It was not 50 pages by the end. Once I started thinking, oh, well, a student is going to need to know this, then they're going to need to know this, and then this skill and this skill, ended up becoming a nearly 1,200 page Google document that I finished writing in about 5 months. But true to its title, it really does cover everything from beginning to end. It doesn't cover geometry and it doesn't cover algebra, but it covers everything that would need to be covered before those particular skills. The style of which I wrote the book is this. Most books, when you get them, most textbooks, they're grade based or they're age based. So they're saying a student of this grade or this age, they're supposed to know these particular skills. And instead, the way I wrote it is that each chapter instead focuses on one particular topic or skill from beginning to end. So there's a whole chapter at the very beginning on just counting, because before you can do any addition or subtraction, you have to know how to count. Then from there, the next chapter is addition, but it covers addition from a visual perspective all the way to adding a single digit number to a double digit number, to then double digit addition. Then it covers subtraction. Multiplication is a fairly long chapter, and it covers everything from like simple multiplication to memorized multiplication to a 12 by 12 multiplication chart. And then it starts to go into multiplying large numbers by a single digit, then large numbers by a double digit, and then having like uh, multiple products that you add at the end of the problem. Every single skill I could think of got its own chapter. So division is its own chapter from beginning to end. And it goes from as simple as it's basically like multiplication, but kind of in the inverse, to basically large numbers divided by double-digit divisors or triple-digit divisors. And, I mean, that chapter alone was about 60, 70 pages long. Uh, of all the chapters in the book, it covers is it the 4 main operations, but it also covers fractions. In fact, fractions is 2 chapters. There's what fractions are, and then also fraction operations, like how to add, subtract, multiply, divide fractions. Decimals are also 2 separate chapters. What exactly are decimals? But then also, what are the decimal operations? So adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing decimals. Ratios, rates, proportions is its own chapter. So is percentages, powers and exponents, square roots, integers, and also integer operations is its own chapter. So any skill you can think of in math got its own chapter. And the reason why is because I try to make sure within each chapter that every possible situation or type of issue that arises within that skill was addressed. Like, for example, when you're subtracting, when you have to borrow across multiple zeros, I want to make sure that got its own section to practice and have examples of. And within each chapter, the way it is broken down as far as structure is I'll introduce a topic or a concept. Then I'll show the steps or the process for solving that. Then I'll give plenty of examples, or we call it guided practice. And then there's an independent practice section where they can practice it on their own. But also within all of the chapters, there is plenty of review sections put about as well. And the reason why is so that it forces students to practice the skill that was from the previous chapter. So that basically, well, just like Coach John Wooden says, that the way to learn is by explanation, demonstration, imitation, then repetition, 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 repetition. There is a lot of built-in practice in this textbook. And it forces students to not only practice the current skill, but to make sure they can go back and still do the previous skills. So it's very, very thorough. Okay, so who is this book for? Well, it could be for a homeschool family that needs one singular kind of reference book or textbook for, let's say, one child or even multiple children. You can have one child who's working on the place values chapter, but maybe an older sibling is already working on statistics and data, and they can work on that chapter separately as well. So it's designed so that multiple kids within one family can use it. But also, if you're a teacher or a parent, it's meant to address any of the skill gaps. So if, let's say, they are in 5th grade and they're supposed to be learning about multiplying fractions, but let's say they still don't quite understand the concept of fractions. Well, that's fine. There's a previous section for that. They can go back and practice that as well. So it's kind of like, where are the possible gaps in understanding? This book has it all in one resource. So you're not trying to buy multiple books, and you're not trying to go back and look for another textbook and wonder what section it was covered at. And again, it has lots of examples, lots of explanation, and lots of chances to practice, and also spiral back and practice it again and again and again. So if you were to get this textbook, is it too much? Look, when I finished writing it, it was around 1,271 pages. It was hefty. Is it too much, though? No, I argue not, because it addresses any possible situation that might come up in their understanding of arithmetic, all within one resource. And that's what I wanted to do with this when I wrote it. I said, I want to make sure that no matter what question might possibly come up, that we have some answer somewhere within this book to address that. And the fact that we made each chapter address a specific topic or a specific skill makes it easier to find that way. And some of these chapters are long. So for example, I said there's 2 fraction chapters. Each chapter, like just understanding fractions, I think it's like close to 80 pages. And then the fraction operations is close to 100 pages. So it's very, very thorough. So it meets any student anywhere within their journey of learning arithmetic. As of right now, I believe this video is going to come out the last week of February. I want to say February 25th or 26th. I think it's 25th. And the book is done. It has been written, but it's currently being formatted right now, and it is currently having a design or a cover designed for it. But when it releases, we will have it on our website, lilwillco.com, and you can buy it basically as an ebook, whether that's a PDF or some other format. not entirely sure yet, but it'll be an ebook form. It will be a very long book. Like I said, just when I wrote it, it was around over 1,200 pages. So it'll be available there, and I think we're looking at a price around $150 for this because it's very, very thorough. But we're also gonna be releasing it in other formats. So if you wanna get, like, a physical copy of the book, what we're gonna do is we're not gonna, put it as, like, one gigantic 1,200 page book. We're gonna release as each chapter is its own book because, again, each chapter is close to, like, let's say 50 to 100 pages long, so they're fairly thorough in that sense. So that you can buy each chapter as a physical copy, and we'll even give an option where you can buy all the chapters as physical books, and we'll send it to you basically as one gigantic bundle. I haven't figured out the pricing on that yet, but we'll figure that out pretty soon. I think we're gonna have it available so you can buy it on Kindle, each chapter individually, and then also you can buy the chapters individually on, let's say, Teachers Pay Teachers. But by far, I think the most cost-effective method is if you were just to buy the whole entire book with all the chapters, all as one ebook. It's the simplest, it's the easiest to deliver to customers, and get to everybody fairly quickly, and it has all the information there. So, but again, we'll make sure it's available in multiple formats depending on whatever best fits your needs. And I don't know the exact date when that'll be ready. I'll give an update video on when it's finally ready, but needless to say, I'm really proud of this book. I put a lot of work into it. I jokingly tell people it also took a part of my soul to finish this, but I try to make sure that it's as accessible and as um valuable to many, many families and students no matter where they are in their learning journey, and I think you'll find it very, very useful. So that being said, thank you for listening. If you are looking for educational material such as math textbook or math word problems or phonics, or you're looking for personalized curriculum for you and your child, or looking for a tutor or a mentor for your child, come check us out at the Lil Will Learning Company. We're happy to help you. Until then, please like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. And until then, take care.